Tonight, we're celebrating 30 years for pace setters, and I want to say just what a great pleasure it has been for me to be a member of this club for 25 of those 30 years. But as Jane mentioned, I wasn't always a pace setter. I started out with a club called Centennial. I joined them in the spring of 95 and got a few speeches in. We took the summer break off. When we came back in the fall, we met. The executive stood up and said, well, none of us really want to continue, so we're shutting down the club. Well, that gave me a job to do. I had to find a different club, and I checked out a few, and I ended up with pace setters. And there were two reasons I joined pace setters. One, of course, was Irene Murray. She was obviously an extremely competent person and somebody that I could learn from. The other thing I liked about pace setters was it was a casual meeting. We seemed to have fun. And it contrasted quite a bit with another club I visited where everybody wore a suit and tie and it was extremely formal. And I didn't really want to be involved in a formal meeting like that. I had the privilege of being a co-member with Irene Murray, and I don't believe any of you or most of you here know much about Irene. So I'm going to tell you what I learned and what I gleaned in about Irene's history. Irene was born and grew up during the Depression in a acreage or farm in South Calgary. In one of her speeches, she told us she had a great mop of red hair. In another speech, she told us that her favorite cartoon character was Betty Boop. Betty Boop was a very famous cartoon character of the 1940s when Irene would have been a little girl. And Irene brought in a Betty Boop doll, a Betty Boop statuette, and some Betty Boop printed material. So Irene got married, she had children, and then unexpectedly her husband died at quite a young age, and that left Irene as a single mom trying to raise her children. And she had a job, but it wasn't an especially well-paying or prestigious job. She decided that she had to do something about her shyness and gain some self-confidence, and she decided that Toastmasters was the way to do it. Irene liked to say that she was the first female Toastmaster in Calgary, because back in what would it be? Back in 1996, when she, I guess I've got my dates wrong, but anyway, when she joined, it was a all men's club. She joined the Bow Valley Toastmasters, and she had to register just with her first initial, and she conveniently forgot to tick the male-female box. Well, it wasn't long before Irene had broken out of that barrier, and in 1973, she founded her own Golden Gavel Club. Irene was very, very active in Toastmasters. She got her Distinguished Toastmaster, competed in speech contests locally and internationally. And when she went to some of these international meetings, she would tape the speeches. And I recall on a slow night in our club, she would pull out her cassettes and we would listen to one of these championship speeches. One especially sticks in my mind because the person who gave the speech got out of a hospital bed to go and make the speech. They then returned to the hospital and died the next day. Now I asked Irene, did he win? And she said, no, unfortunately he came second. And I always wondered, would he have won if he wasn't at death's door when he gave that speech? Irene was the Calgary Toastmaster of the Year in 1978, and she became the first female District 42 governor in 1980. As was mentioned by Jane, she founded many clubs, 15 I understand, one of which, of course, was pace setters, but one other one she founded was a club at the Bowden Penitentiary. And she went and coached the inmates there so they would have more chance of success when they got out of prison. what I remember most about Irene is just what a super competent speaker she was. If if somebody didn't show up or couldn't do a speech, Irene would pull something out of her memory bank and give a speech that sounded like it had been rehearsed for 2 or 3 weeks. And it was impossible uh, to get a table topic that she couldn't respond to. She always came up with wonderful responses, lots of humor in them, and she just had a wonderful gift for speaking. She cared a lot about the club, mentored many people, including myself and Jane, and fulfilled every executive role in the club, and prompted many of our members to get involved outside of our club. Despite she eventually had some health problems, but despite that, we kept her on our roster so that she would get her monthly Toastmaster magazine and would be getting emails on what was going on with the club. And as Jane mentioned, she passed away 2 years ago in 2019. I think we can be very thankful that Irene Murray formed our club and was such an active member and so supportive for so many years. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about locations. When I joined, we were meeting in the Health Plus building, which is just on the east side of McLeod Trail in Midnapore. We were all jammed into a little tiny boardroom. You had to wear ballet slippers to come to the meeting because the seating, the quarters were so close. And I was very happy when we then moved into a Christian school where we had a classroom all to ourselves for a couple of years. And then we learned that Midlands United Church would be able to offer us some space at a considerable saving. And so we moved there, and we were there for about 10 years. And that was a wonderful place. We had a kitchen, we had several areas we could meet. We could use the whole church for a function. I know we celebrated Irene's 40th anniversary in Toastmasters and had 75 or 100 people show up for a big party. Unfortunately, that church, Midlands, was leasing their land from St. Mary's College. And St. Mary's College was growing, so they did not renew the lease, bought out the church, and of course our time there ended. We were offered a space at St. Mary's College. Unfortunately, Irene's deal of not paying any night's rent did not apply to us. And in fact, that place almost bankrupted us. We had an inexperienced treasurer, and one day in sort of Mayish, the executive got a call, say, I have a lot of bills to pay and there's no money in the bank. So a group of us decided to pitch in and make the club solvent. And then we made it, fortunately, we had Annette Part as part of our club, and she checked with her principal and found that we could move out to her school. And that is where we've been. We've been at St. Sebastian, and it has had two big advantages for us. First off, we didn't have to pay anything, and that really helped our bank account and our bottom line. The second thing is that location is the most southerly location in Calgary for a Toastmasters club. So all the south end of Calgary that has been built up and mushrooming, they are the people that when they're looking for someplace close, Pacesetters is the one they pick. So we have always had a steady stream of visitors and guests, and that's been a big advantage. Let's talk about the program. When I started, we just had one book, the Competent Communicator book. It had 10 speeches. You did your 10 speeches. You were awarded the Competent Communicator Award. Then you had the Special Project Advanced Communication booklets, 5 speeches each. You did 2 booklets, and you got bronze, 2 more booklets silver, 2 more booklets gold. Then, and I think there was other things you did to go on and become a distinguished Toastmaster. Then in the early 2000s, they introduced the Competent Communicator or Competent Leadership book. And again, that had a series of tasks that you had to do, and a bronze, silver, and gold advanced activity. Now, of course, we're in pathways, and we have all kinds of different paths to achieve our objectives. Jane mentioned that Irene was a real stickler for the Toastmaster program. And one thing that she really was strongly in favor of was our business meeting and parliamentary procedure. Now, I don't know if many of you have been on committees or been on school boards or any sort of kind of public meeting activity. They follow parliamentary procedure and the Robert's Rules of Order. We would have a business meeting as part of our main meeting, 10 minutes every week. If we didn't have any business to conduct, we'd make frivolous motions and learn how to make the motions, amend the motions, retract the motions, and all sorts of other things. Somebody was appointed a parliamentarian, and they adjudicated the meeting, and also they gave a tip later in the meeting. Now it seems that parliamentary procedure isn't really a part of Toastmasters anymore, and I think that's a bit of a shame. Another major change was the ribbons. When I joined, we had a red, a white, and a blue ribbon. One was for best speaker, one was for best evaluator. Jane's holding up a red one, and one was for best table topics. Now, of course, we're in the mono-dimensional blue ribbons, and I think, again, the multicolored ones were far more colorful. We didn't have a mentorship program until 2015, when Isabel Suarez, one of our members, decided to institute it. When she left, I ended up taking it over as the coordinator of the mentorship. There was a little note on Irene. One thing she did at meetings when we were slow, she would pull out the phone book and she'd buttonhole somebody and say, "Here, take the phone book." And then you would read names, addresses, and phone numbers with great gusto to develop your vocal variety. She had a number of other cute little things like that she would do. I didn't mention, but Irene had a professional speaking business, and one of her contracts was with the Olympic organization, and she was coaching the Olympic medal winners who had to go around and give speeches throughout the country. And she would coach them, of course, not outside of Toastmasters, but occasionally they would come to our meetings and test their speeches, and we would critique them for Irene. In 25 years, I've seen a lot of people go through the club, hundreds of people. And as somebody has mentioned, our membership at times dipped down to 10 or less. Fortunately, in recent years, we've been up in the 25, 30 range. One thing I've found is that anytime I run into an old Toastmaster, they seem to have a very positive recollection of their time at Toastmasters and how much good it did them. Toastmasters has done me a lot of good. The one thing I've always liked about Toastmasters is that it kind of keeps you active in speaking, so that if somebody calls upon you to say something, you're not just caught cold. So it's been 30 years for pace setters, 25 years for me, and I still find that Tuesday evenings are a highlight of my week. And I hope the same is for you.